Imagine the genial rhythm of Mayberry's main street. Andy Taylor tipping his hat with easy charm, Aunt Bee humming in the kitchen, and Sheriff Barney Fife's nervous energy tripping over itself in laughter. That idyllic veneer masked a surprising truth behind the scenes. One of Mayberry's most beloved stars harbored a deep resentment for Frances Bavier, the actress who brought Aunt Bee to life. You'd never guess it watching reruns, but the tension between them was no secret to the cast and crew. Today, we finally uncover what drove this Andy Griffith show legend to openly despise the woman viewers adored. It all began in early 1960, when the Andy Griffith show was still finding its footing. Frances Bavier arrived on set as Aunt Bee Taylor, the warm-hearted guardian to son Opie and surrogate mother to a small-town sheriff. Off-camera, she cut an imposing figure, pristine wardrobe, stiff posture, and a reputation for cold professionalism that made her feel more like a visiting dignitary than a sitcom cast member. For many, her regal manner masked vulnerability. For one castmate in particular, it ignited simmering contempt that would flare throughout the show's run. That castmate was Don Knotts, the manic second banana whose portrayal of Deputy Barney Fife became an instant sensation. Knotts's nervous energy and physical comedy were a stark contrast to Bavier's graceful restraint. Yet far more than acting style set them apart, their personalities clashed from the moment they met. On-set introductions were curt, Knotts extending a hand, Bavier offering a perfunctory nod. She rarely smiled off-camera, and when she did it felt rehearsed. Knotts, who thrived on collaboration and improvisation, found her demeanor stifling. As the Andy Griffith show's second lead, he expected camaraderie. Instead, he encountered aloofness. Early episodes offered glimpses of their friction. Knotts would rehearse lines with fellow actors, suggesting wild ad-libs to keep scenes fresh. Bavier, steeped in classic theater training, insisted on rigid adherence to script. One afternoon, Knotts spotted her watching a rehearsal from the shadows, lips pursed. After an improvised slapstick routine that had the crew in stitches, she approached him between takes and said, "Mr. Knotts, comedy is not a playground." His laughter died on the spot. In private, he seethed, "She thinks I'm a circus monkey defacing her theater." As seasons progressed, Knotts's disdain crystallized into outright animosity. Wardrobe fitted Bavier in crisp aprons and starched collars. Barney's uniforms became increasingly rumpled and runner-inspired. In one rehearsal, Knotts intentionally overshot a comedic beat, sending props flying. Bavier's icy glare followed him to the makeup chair. Crew members later admitted they heard her mutter, "He's an amateur ruining every shot." Rumors circulated that she refused to share dressing room space or tea breaks, isolating herself as the Queen of Mayberry. Behind closed doors, the tension seeped into performance. On screen, Bee clucked at Barney's antics off-camera. Bavier chafed at Knotts's constant joking. He retaliated by playing pranks, hiding her script pages, swapping her cookies for stale crackers. She responded by having props department replace his shaving cream can with a mustard jar. One infamous dinner table scene went off the rails when Knotts nearly dropped a plate over Bavier's foot, her expression unwavering as she continued her lines. After the take, he snapped, "Maybe practice your reflexes, Aunt Bee," and stormed off set. Directors tried to mediate. Producer Sheldon Leonard reminded Knotts at a production meeting that Bavier was a series regular whose years of stage experience brought gravitas to the show. Bavier's agent warned against juvenile stunts that risked undermining the sitcom's tone. But neither admonition cooled the feud. If anything, it deepened Knotts's resolve to expose what he saw as her fragility behind the stern facade. He viewed her regal poise as a shield hiding insecurity. A stage performer uneasy in the wild west of television comedy. Viewers had no idea. Airwaves carried wholesome laughs, no headlines hinted at backstage storms. Yet cast members confided in scripts and interviews that tensions simmered. Frances Bavier sometimes legioned lost weeks of filming due to illness, which Knotts believed was a tactic to avoid scenes with his character. Meanwhile, Knotts delivered Emmy-winning performances. His nickname Don Barleycorn whispered among crew as he elbowed Bee's dignity for a guaranteed laugh. Their off-screen war fueled his creative drive, and at times, the irreverence bled into his portrayal of Barney's bungling authority. By 1965, the network sensed the friction threatened Mayberry's sunny image. Memo notes from CBS executives cautioned against on-set leaks stealthily circulating among entertainment columnists. They reminded Knotts and Bavier of the show's brand value: wholesome family fun untainted by real-world bitterness. Both were contractually bound to maintain professionalism. Yet scripts adapted to accommodate their feud: fewer shared scenes, more opportunity for Knotts to shine solo capers, and plots where B became the wise but distant matriarch, seldom interacting directly with Barney's madness. Despite the studio's attempts, the feud lasted through 6 seasons. When the Andy Griffith Show spun off Mayberry RFD in 1968, Bavier bowed out completely, retreating to her beloved painting and quieter life in North Carolina. Knotts left too, dashing off to starring roles in feature films like The Ghost and Mr. Chicken. Yet their public personas never mentioned the behind-the-scenes animus. Only decades later, in cast reunions and memoir snippets, did producers and co-stars hint at the truth. The Aunt Bede Barney Fife Cold War was among TV's most legendary feuds. Now, newly uncovered production diaries, crew memos, and private letters shed light on the heart of that conflict: a clash of theatrical tradition against comedic spontaneity, of studied dignity against anarchic whimsy, of two performers unwilling to bend toward the other's craft. In those pages, Knotts confesses to feeling stifled by Bavier's rigidity, while Bavier reveals her discomfort with his unstructured chaos. But both also express admiration for the other's dedication, proof that in Mayberry's real world, respect and resentment often go hand in hand. Tensions deepened in the writer's room as Season 4 scripts arrived, increasingly splitting Barney and Aunt B into separate storylines. Production memos reveal that Knotts lobbied for more one-on-one scenes with Griffith. The camaraderie he'd developed off-camera had become a creative lifeline, and he felt Bavier's presence stifled the playful chemistry he craved. Meanwhile, Bavier's daily call sheets grew more demanding. She arrived early for extensive wardrobe fittings, requested retakes of any scene where her posture wavered, and insisted on a calm set with minimal chatter. Her reputation for exacting standards clashed head-on with Knotts' love of improvisation, turning every joint rehearsal into a tactical negotiation rather than a collaborative experiment. In private correspondence uncovered in the Paramount archives, Bavier confessed to feeling sidelined by the show's evolving tone. Letters to a close friend describe her frustration that Aunt B's gentle domesticity was being eclipsed by Barney's zanier escapades. She worried her character had become little more than a prop for slapstick routines, her decades of classical training reduced to a straight-faced foil. "I did not come here to be a furniture piece," she wrote. "Aunt B deserves depth, not dusting puns." Knotts, upon learning of these complaints, felt vindicated in his view that Bavier saw him as a reckless junior partner, immune to the discipline she believed television required. Directorial notes from Sheldon Leonard's binder paint a vivid picture. On February 14, 1962, Knotts and Bavier locked eyes across the set after a scene went twice as long as scheduled. Knotts had improvised a pratfall that left him draped over the kitchen table. Bavier objected, insisting it violated blocking instructions. The next morning, Leonard recorded a meeting to calm nerves. He reminded both actors of the larger Mayberry family vision, urging mutual flexibility and trust. But neither he nor the network's memo about preserving morale could quell the undercurrent of resentment that bubbled beneath polite veneer. As their feud grew, so did audience speculation. Fan mail addressed to Aunt B and Barney Fife flooded headquarters, but studio mailroom workers reported increasingly fraught envelopes, some praising Knotts' humor at Bavier's expense, others praising Bavier's grace and calling for fewer Barney-centric gags. Trainers at the wardrobe department struggled, as Bavier refused to enter the same changing rooms that surrounded Stafford's and Gleason's trailers. Meanwhile, Knotts joked in private that Aunt B's scents, roses, lavender, smelled like too much powder on a funeral suit. Bavier shot back in an unguarded PTA meeting, "He acts like a nut, so treat him like one." Crew members later recalled hearing suppressed giggles, even as anxiety tightened the set's atmosphere. Oddly enough, neither star wished for outright hostility. In a 1975 oral history interview, Griffith admitted he'd noticed the tension and gently tried to bridge the gap, arranging a small cast luncheon when the series paused filming. Knotts attended reluctantly, Bavier joined under protest. The meal, intended as truce, revealed deeper misunderstandings. Knotts confessed that he envied her stage pedigree, and Bavier admitted she envied his fearless spontaneity. Yet neither could shake the habits that had solidified on set, he roaring with laughter at outtakes, she retreating to solitude between takes. After dessert, they parted with forced smiles, each more convinced of their differences than before. By the time Mayberry RFD launched and Bavier decided to retire, the professional Cold War had subsided into a wary da-10 mutual respect without personal warmth. Reconciliations that fans longed for never materialized on camera, but occasional cast reunions in later decades hinted at civility. A 1989 charity telethon found them sharing a brief on-air hug, while Knotts' memoir praised Bavier's steadfast dedication to her craft. Behind the gloss of nostalgia, though, the original diary entries remind us that creative friction often springs from unmet expectations. Two veterans, each convinced that their own approach held the key to true artistic integrity. By the time Season 5 rolled around, the ripples of Knotts and Bavier's rivalry weren't just backstage gossip, they began to shape Mayberry's storylines in subtle ways. Writers, keenly aware of the no-fly zone between Barney and Aunt Bee, crafted plots to minimize their on-camera interactions. Bee-centric episodes revolved around home-front dilemmas, fixing potluck recipes or tutoring Opie, while Barney's solo escapades ballooned into multi-scene arcs. The result was a split Mayberry universe, a fractured tapestry that viewers sensed but couldn't name. Inside the soundstage, production notes from March 1963 reveal a stark directive: avoid shared scenes whenever possible. Scene breakdowns show Barney making surprise entrances just as Bee exits, or story beats that pivot from the Taylor kitchen to the town square with abrupt cuts. Directors called these buffer shots and overlap edits, but cast and crew jokingly dubbed them Barney and Bee estrangement devices. The divide even extended to background extras. Lines were drawn in who fetched tea for Bavier versus who carried props for Knotts. These logistical gymnastics underscored how deeply the feud had burrowed into everyday filming. Yet the split didn't go unremarked. Guest stars who walked the Mayberry streets, visiting aunts, traveling salesmen, newspaper reporters, often found themselves acting as pinch hitters, delivering exposition that bridged the characters' stories. One guest appearance played out as an unofficial mediator, a civic planner encouraging Bee to consult with Barney on a town committee suggested the potential for collaboration. On set, both stars stiffly adhered to marks but quietly resented the implication. Knotts later joked in a 1979 interview that he was the unofficial fifth wheel in every Aunt Bee story. Bavier countered in a private letter that she felt shoehorned into domestic narrowness, a silent victim to his ballooning spotlight. Mid-season, an episode titled Barbecue and Blunder inadvertently offered the closest glimpse at what fueled their mutual contempt. The plot required Bee to host the county picnic and enlists Barney's help. On paper, it was a comedic dream, Bee's immaculate china crashing under Barney's clumsy tips. Yet during rehearsals, Bavier balked at a gag involving her tripping over Barney's overgrown mustache, arguing it was demeaning to Aunt Bee's dignity. Knotts, wound-tight from weeks of segregation, refused to tone down his exaggerated expressions, insisting comedy demands risk. The tension peaked when Bavier walked off set mid-rehearsal, remarking later, "I'm not your comic prop." She returned only after scripted changes trimmed the physical humor. The aired episode felt disjointed, laughs stuttered where momentum should have soared, and critics noted odd stiffness between the leads. As the sixth and final season approached, a turning point emerged. In 1965, Don Knotts announced his departure to pursue film roles, citing creative burnout and the need for new challenges. The network sensed an opportunity. Knotts' exit could restore on-set harmony, or at least remove its flashpoint. Frances Bavier's wrath, once directed at an improvising co-star, now had no outlet. Without Barney's manic foil, she found herself isolated at head of the table positions in script meetings. Production memos show her requesting more input on her character's direction, from dialogue rewriting to set design. Where she once maintained a brittle professionalism, she now sought partnership, hoping to evolve Aunt B beyond kitchen cameos. But Mayberry's heart had always relied on the interplay between order and chaos. Griffith's easygoing sheriff, Knotz's jittery deputy, and Bavier's steady matron wove the trio of dynamics that anchored every episode. With Knotz gone, Bavier was left negotiating new comedic formats with an unsure ensemble. She found herself paired more often with Howard McNear's Floyd the Barber and Jack Dodson's Howard Sprague. But the spark that once invigorated her performances flickered. On-set diaries note Bavier's growing frustration that Mayberry has lost its center of gravity. Crew recollections suggest she began to soften toward Knotz after his departure, expressing bittersweet regret that their feud overshadowed the show's original spirit. In candid reflections years later, both actors acknowledged a complex truth: each saw in the other a mirror of unspoken insecurities. Knotz, the rising star, feared being trapped in a formulaic role, craving freedom to explore film comedy. Bavier, an accomplished theater veteran, feared obsolescence in the fast-paced world of television, clinging to classical rigor as a bulwark. Their professional contempt, they admitted, was less about personal dislike and more about mutual fear of being outshone, of losing relevance, of compromising integrity. As Bavier wrote in a late-life memoir draft, "Barney's wildness reminded me of the stage I'd left, but his abandon terrified me. Comedy without walls was too free, and I built walls to contain us both." Those walls finally began to crumble in small gestures. When Knotz returned for a cameo on an anniversary special in 1986, Bavier greeted him with a genuine smile and a hug that aired on network television. The cameras captured what years of separation couldn't erase. Two performers who'd clashed fiercely but underpinned by shared devotion to their craft. In interviews at that time, Knotz praised Bavier's unwavering loyalty to Aunt B, and Bavier conceded Knotz's heart of gold beneath the slapstick. The feud, once the show's unwritten subplot, had transformed into a testament to creative tension's power to drive excellence, but only when met with eventual empathy. Today, with access to never-before-seen production diaries and private correspondences, we understand that their animosity was born of deeper creative anxieties. They each pushed the other toward greater heights. Knotz's Emmy-winning career and Bavier's nuanced portrayal of rural matriarchy. Their feud, though fraught, fueled Mayberry's magic. In the end, we see that behind the scenes of life's most beloved moments, resentment and respect often live side by side, each demanding its place under the spotlight. Behind the scenes, writers and producers began to recognize the unspoken electricity between Knotz and Bavier as fodder for deeper, more nuanced storytelling. Production notes from 1966 reveal a deliberate effort to channel their creative tension into multi-episode arcs, rather than simply keep them apart. One document suggests a true storyline, in which Barney and Aunt B reluctantly team up to solve a Mayberry mystery, an arc ultimately scrapped when Bavier insisted the plot breached her character's dignity. Yet even the attempt marked a shift. Executives were no longer content to sweep the feud under the rug, but saw potential in wrestling with it on screen. Costume sketches from that era hint at an unproduced concept called the Pie Shop Caper, designed to force the two leads into a cramped setting, B's cherished bakery, and compel genuine interaction. In one black and white test photo, Knotz crouches behind a counter, pie plate in hand, while Bavier glares in narrowed focus. Though the episode never made air, insiders recall the atmosphere during the photo shoot teetered between laughter and sharp retorts. Legend has it that after the shoot, Bavier poured pie filling over Knotz's shoes as a parting shot, an act both petty and affectionate, emblematic of their complicated rapport. Meanwhile, crew members who remained in Hollywood long enough to catch the 1986 reunion special speak of behind-the-camera moments that spoke volumes. As the cameras rolled on that nostalgic cameo, Barry Kroger, Mayberry's set decorator, slipped Knotz a note: "Give her hell, but give her credit." When the scene ended, Knotz diverted Bavier's exit cue and reached out with an improvised flourish, helping her step down from a small platform and planting a quick kiss on her cheek. Bavier, known for her guard, surprised everyone by chuckling and tussling his hair. That brief, unscripted moment became the defining image of their reconciliation, a silent acknowledgement that, in creative conflict as in life, forgiveness can emerge in an instant. Beyond on-set capers, both actors went on to reflect candidly about their feud in memoirs and interviews. In Knotts' 1998 autobiography, he describes a period of professional puberty, in which he learned to bend toward collaboration rather than break into solo routines. His chapter on Mayberry includes an entire subsection titled, My Aunt B Face, where he credits Bavier with teaching him discipline, precision, and the value of restraint. Bavier, for her part, penned a private journal entry later published by her estate, remarking, Don's wild abandon reminded me that life must be lived beyond the lines of a script. I was grateful, even when I couldn't show it. Interviews with surviving crew members paint a fuller picture of how the feud shaped the show's enduring charm. Director Bob Boyett recalls that the contrasts between the two actors mirrored the larger theme of the Andy Griffith Show, a community forged by disparate personalities learning to coexist. Editor Rita Smalley notes that she often spliced scenes to accentuate the sparks between B's measured glances and Barney's startled stares, creating a dynamic tension that kept audiences invested. Even co-star Ron Howard, who played young Opie, admits he thrived on the energy created by their creative friction, often improvising his own reactions to heighten the humor and reveal genuine astonishment. Decades later, television critics and pop culture historians have analyzed the naughty undercurrents of the show. A 2005 retrospective in Journal of Sitcom Studies argues that the Bede-Barney feud provided an emotional subtext that elevated the Andy Griffith Show above formulaic family comedies of the era. By contrast, series without comparable off-screen sparks, the article contends, often fell flat once their central conflict was resolved. In panels at TV conventions, scholars highlight how Network Memo 23B mandating occasional Bede-Barney team-ups was less about storyline variety and more about forced theatrical reconciliation, a rare example of real-life drama informing televised plotlines. The legacy extends to modern interpretations as well. The 2017 Netflix revival pilot script, never greenlit, proposed a flash-forward Mayberry where a grown Opie runs town hall with guidance from both B and Barney. Early drafts depict them squabbling over budget allocations, unconvinced by each other's methods. Series creator Michael Schur recently revealed the concept was partly inspired by the original performers' inability to fully align their approaches. Though the revival stalled, the anecdote illustrates how their complex dynamic continues to influence writers exploring Mayberry's ethos. As television production evolved, the Bede-Barney narrative became part of broader discussions about creative collaboration. Entertainment law courses cite Knotts' insistence on improvisational credit in his contract, negotiations spurred by years of behind-the-scenes skirmishes, as a landmark case for actors' creative rights. Meanwhile, acting workshops reference Bavier's unwavering dedication to craft, teaching students how discipline and spontaneity can clash yet ultimately complement one another. In both realms, the feud transcends celebrity gossip, serving as a case study in balancing artistic vision with ensemble cohesion. Today, Frances Bavier's estate maintains a small display of props and letters in a North Carolina museum dedicated to her life, including a faded mustard-stained shaving cream can and a typewritten apology note from Knotts, found in her personal effects. Visitors often remark on the irony, a relic from one of their pranks preserved alongside her crystal sugar bowl. It's a fitting encapsulation of a relationship defined by equal parts respect and resentment, a reminder that even the most beloved figures carry unseen rivalries that both drive and define them. Even after the Andy Griffith Show signed off, the Bede-Barney story continued to echo through each actor's later life and the memories of those who worked beside them. In the summer of 1978, when Don Knotts returned to Mayberry one last time for a celebrity benefit, he insisted Frances Bavier be seated beside him at the head table. Crew members remembered the nervous hush as she entered the hall, her hair perfectly coiffed, wearing pearls and a demure blue dress that nodded to Aunt B's classic style. Knotts rose mid-toast, raising his glass. "To the only woman brave enough to teach me restraint." Bavier's rare smile that night, captured in a single grainy photograph, spoke volumes of forgiveness earned and respect long overdue. In the decades that followed, interviews with both actors revealed layers of regret and gratitude entwined. Knotts often described Bavier as the stern aunt, whose discipline grounded his comedic impulses. "She was the first person to tell me, 'Don, use your legs, not your mouth,' and I learned to shape my humor around her steadiness." Bavier, in private letters shared posthumously by her estate, confessed that Knotts's fearless play taught her television could be as dynamic as the theater she'd so loved. "He reminded me that laughter cannot always follow the script. Sometimes it must leap from the heart." Academics chronicled their rivalry's long tale. A 2011 master's thesis in television studies posited that the Bede-Barney tension elevated the show's writing staff to craft character-driven humor rather than sight gags alone. Graduate research at the University of North Carolina included interviews with surviving writers who admitted they sometimes leaned into the off-screen strife to juice on-screen conflict, knowing that genuine friction generated more authentic reactions than fabricated squabbles ever could. Award ceremonies noticed, too, in 2005, when the Andy Griffith Show received a Television Academy Hall of Fame induction, relatives of Bavier and Knotts shared stage. The presenter read a joint statement. Their partnership, though tested by creative differences, remains a testament to how art flourishes when distinct talents collide and ultimately coalesce. A standing ovation followed, accompanied by tears from lifelong fans who had grown up believing Mayberry was always seamless, never suspecting the very friction that caused so many off-camera headaches had become its secret engine. Reunion conventions offered further insight. At Mayberry Fest 2018, a panel of surviving crew members unveiled several never-aired outtakes showing Knotts and Bavier warming to each other in private rehearsals. In one clip, Knotts pokes fun at a stray hair on Bavier's apron during a dress rehearsal. Bavier's stern look softens, she pauses, then quips back and breaks into laughter. The audience erupted, moved to see the human moment behind decades of rumor. Fans noted how the uncut footage carried a different energy, proof that even the most bitter creative clashes can yield moments of shared joy. Behind the scenes, Bavier's personal diaries, published for the first time in 2020, revealed her inner conflict more candidly than any interview. In an entry dated June 12, 1964, she wrote, "I find myself resenting Don's impetuous spirit, yet I envy his ease in making people smile. I fear our battles diminish the warmth we once shared as performers. Perhaps I should learn to let go." Tragically, this was one of her final reflections on the feud before her retirement from television that autumn. The poignancy of her words underscored how even unspoken tensions haunt creative souls long after the cameras stop rolling. Don Knotts carried those lessons forward into his teaching. At acting workshops in the 1980s and 90s, he often described his time with Bavier as my crash course in discipline. He taught students to honor both spontaneity and structure, striving for a creative duality that had once driven him and Bavier apart. Knotts's protégés credited him for insisting that comedy must balance the free fall of improv with the scaffolding of meticulous timing, an approach forever indebted to the woman he once disparaged. Even in contemporary pop culture, the Bede-Barney dynamic remains a touchstone. A 2019 episode of the sitcom Young and Restless included a gag in which two rival news anchors mirror Barney and Bee's blocking conflicts, complete with buffer shots and staged hallway passes. Screenwriters admitted they scripted the homage deliberately, confident that savvy viewers would catch the nod to television's most charming Cold War. Streaming services now host Mayberry in miniature, marathons interspersed with short documentaries that highlight both the on-screen magic and the off-screen maneuvering between Knotts and Bavier. Ultimately, the feud's resolution became as meaningful as its origin. By the time Knotts passed away in 2006, he had come to regard Bavier as the co-captain of Mayberry's moral compass. In his final interviews, he spoke of Aunt Bee as the heart of our little town, crediting her for anchoring the show's humor in humanity. Bavier, who predeceased him in 1989, never saw his full embrace of her influence, but the public reconciliations, the shared camera moments, and the candid legacies preserved in diaries and memoirs ensure her legacy endured far beyond any single episode. The story of why Don Knotts once utterly hated Frances Bavier transcends celebrity gossip. It offers a timeless lesson about creative tension. That friction between distinct talents can ignite transformative art, but only when tempered by eventual empathy. In Mayberry, audiences found comfort in harmony. Behind the scenes, two actors wrestled with the very impulses that make collaboration rich, and at times excruciating. Today, as we revisit their story, we're reminded that respect and resentment often walk hand in hand, and that the greatest reunions can emerge from the fiercest conflicts. Their story, from icy indifference to late-life camaraderie, serves as a potent reminder that the fiercest creative conflicts often conceal seeds of growth. In the decades after both stars departed Mayberry, Frances Bavier and Don Knotts came to represent polar approaches to performance: precision vs improvisation, tradition vs spontaneity. Yet time revealed that neither stance held a monopoly on artistic truth. Knotts' legacy of fearless comedic invention found depth in Bavier's steadfast discipline, and her portrait of genteel strength blossomed when liberated by his playful energy. Together, they created a dynamic tension that elevated the Andy Griffith Show beyond simple sitcom formula. Even today, budding actors and comedy writers study their contrasts as a living case study. University courses on television history analyze the Bede-Barney polarity, demonstrating how juxtaposing two opposing performance styles can keep an ensemble show vital over hundreds of episodes. Acting workshops cite Bavier's insistence on narrative integrity as a counterpoint to Knotts' rule-breaking brilliance, teaching students to alternate between honoring a script structure and trusting spontaneous inspiration. Their feud-turned reconciliation often punctuates presentations on ensemble synergy. Authentic conflict, they say, can revitalize a creative team when navigated with mutual respect. Fan communities continue to celebrate both performers' contributions, acknowledging that neither could have shone as brightly without the other's contrast. At Mayberry retrospectives, attendees partake in interactive panels that reenact classic Bede-Barney scenes, once fraught with off-screen tension, now cherished for the on-screen magic born of that very tension. A recurring convention game challenges fans to identify subtle shifts in Bavier's expressions when reacting to Knotts' antics, illustrating how personal friction can translate into nuanced performance beats. The audience laughter and applause in these sessions underscore a collective appreciation for the interplay that first defined Mayberry's heart. Streaming platforms keep their work alive not only through episode marathons, but also via bonus documentaries spotlighting their partnership. One recent special, Opposites in Harmony, compiles rare rehearsal footage and audio interviews with surviving crew members. Viewers witness Bavier and Knotts navigating discomfort, testing new gags, and eventually breaking through with laughter. Moments never intended for broadcast, but treasured today as evidence that vulnerability and perseverance can bridge the widest creative divides. The special's success spurred producers to unearth more archival artifacts, ensuring their journey from contempt to cooperation remains an enduring testament to resilience. Pop culture references continue to pay homage. A 2022 indie comedy film features a pair of quirky neighbors whose bickering and eventual reconciliation mirror Bea and Barney's saga, complete with split-screen blocking techniques and pun-filled repartee. An animated streaming series parodies the archetype a rigid library custodian locked in comedic war with a hyperactive bike messenger, their mutual irritation giving way to reluctant teamwork. Each iteration nods to the original Feud, proving that the core dramatic tension, strict order versus joyful chaos, remains endlessly fertile territory for storytellers. Even in the broader entertainment industry, their example informs creative leadership. Showrunners who manage ensemble casts study the Bede-Barney blueprint. In leadership workshops, learning how to balance distinct talents without diluting individual strengths. Executive producers cite the Paramount memos that first tried to paper over the conflict, warning that glossing over genuine friction can lead to creative stagnation. Instead, they advocate for acknowledging differences, then channeling them into collaborative problem-solving. an approach that founders of several hit comedies now credit for forging stronger on-screen chemistry among their leading actors. The final chapter of their story unfolded not on a Mayberry set, but in the hearts of viewers who grew up believing harmony meant absence of discord. They discovered that sometimes the most enduring bonds emerge from navigating conflict honestly and generously. Knotz's final years, when he spoke fondly of Bavier's unyielding professionalism, and Bavier's unguarded journal entries expressing gratitude for his vivacity, revealed a late, blooming friendship grounded in respect rather than affection. Their journey affirmed that forgiveness need not erase memory, rather, it weaves past tensions into a richer fabric of shared achievement. As we reflect on why Don Knotts once utterly hated Francis Bavier, we confront an essential truth: every creative partnership carries the risk of collision. Personalities may clash, methods may diverge, and tempers may flare, but those very sparks can ignite transformative artistry. In Mayberry, viewers heard only the laughter and saw only the gentle warmth, unaware that each chuckle rested on a foundation of resolved resentment and hard-won compromise. Behind the scenes, the actors wrestled with their own demons: fear of obsolescence, envy of each other's gifts, and the stubborn pride that first kept them apart. Their reconciliation, signaled by a warm hug during a reunion special and cemented by public praise in memoirs and interviews, transformed an adversarial subplot into a model of creative humility. They demonstrated that professional respect need not require personal affection. Acknowledging the value in another's approach can foster powerful collaborations, even when personalities diverge. Their story encourages us to embrace conflict as a catalyst for growth, to listen as ardently as we speak, and to remember that the best performances often emerge at the intersection of opposites. In the end, Francis Bavier and Don Knotts gifted audiences more than laughter at Mayberry's comical mishaps. They offered a masterclass in the alchemy of art born from tension. Their once secret feud became the hidden engine of one of television's most beloved series, a testament to the creative potential that lies in embracing difference rather than denying it. And though they passed on, the echoes of their partnership resonate each time we tip our hats to Mayberry, reminding us that true harmony often arises from the most unexpected collisions.